Hi, Jason. How you doing today?
Hey, how are you, buddy? How are
Good
you?
to see you again.
I
bit
think
of,
this
bit
is my second time
of,
on this
bit of,
on this podcast.
bit of technical difficulties there, but first person to actually come on for the second time. So I really appreciate it. And it was the number one most downloaded of all the podcasts that I've done so far. So
It's got to be
yeah,
the band and yourself. You do a great job, buddy. I love eclectic group of people. Really interesting. Great idea. You're doing a really great job. Really proud of you, buddy. No,
yeah.
Castrian doing well.
Oh, thank you. So let's start off where we left from those the last podcast that we had. So we were the tour that never was, and
Wow.
I come from the Philippines, away from South Korea, and flew into Perth. You come in from Niue, and we came in and we had a look around, did
Yeah.
sightseeing. Then we did the podcast, which was just amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Just two guys just sitting down talking about a common interest, and it turned out, in my opinion, turned out really good. So let's talk about after that. So I went back home. You sort of continued on and went with the Metclub. So talk to us about that.
Well, that was obviously following the Metallica schedule, so
Yes.
I ended up going to South Australia next, and then Melbourne, then to Sydney. So there was a group of hardcore Metallica fans, if that's how you want to label them, and
Yes.
we sort of caught up throughout that time, and did a lot of tourist-orientated things. But again, just trying to make the most out of the situation, buddy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I remember the last day in Perth, going to the airport, and went past the stadium. All the lights were on. There's just this empty arena full of lights.
Yeah.
And, I was like, oh, damn it.
What never was, it was a challenge. But in saying that, when the Melbourne part of the tour, we Melbourne Militia did a great job. And just while we're on Melbourne Militia, can we just send out a cheerio to everyone from Melbourne, particularly Lana and Daniel,
Yes.
Danny and Pierce. They're doing it really tough. So just on that part, hang in there, guys. So what they really did well was they got the Australian Metallica tribute band Demi Jink, and
Yes.
they had shows which were really great. Again, just staying connected, making the most out of the situation. So that was really great. That was
Absolutely.
really great.
And I'll give a shout out to Mark Hill. Haven't heard from him for a while, but Adam Bricknell and Rick Lee. Hope you guys are doing well. Keep safe. Metallica hardcore fans to the bone as well. So
with 100%.
Hope the Melbourne crew are doing good down there. So now before that, I don't think we mentioned it last time in the podcast, but they released the SN2 at the movies, and I actually didn't get a chance to watch it, but you went a couple of times to watch it. So what did you think about that? I've heard some opinions of the audio wasn't the best, like the mix. So what was your opinion of that?
Yeah, there was obviously challenges to getting things out from a September date to October. So I mean, your editing, your sound arrangements, etc., was always going to be a challenge. So I mean, I found the theatre release great. I mean, it's reliving a moment. I thought they did that really well. I mean, Metallica, again, capturing live shows has been one of their strengths. So, I mean, I found it great. I mean, there were a couple of issues here and there, but no issue on that front.
Yeah. Now, talking about S&M2, we talked only a small bit about it, but you went there. You were lucky enough to get the ticket for the second show, right?
Yeah, the Metclub only show. Yeah. So let's start the process. Basically, they obviously announced the 20-year anniversary of original S&M, Yeah. So basically, on the back of Hardwired, Self-Destruct, which is probably possibly their most popular album since a Black album, to be honest, dating back 20 years itself, it just created mass hysteria. It was, I don't think in the 30 years that I've been listening to the band that I've seen anything like that in regards to fans wanting tickets, etc. So they announced the date, the 6th of September. So obviously the show went on sale, and then there was issues with tickets and arrangements at Metclub, and it really turned into a really difficult situation for the band. So then went into a reselling process as well. So into murky water.
Yeah, so, apparently they sent out the wrong wrong code for the Metclub fans, and they weren't able to access to the tickets, and then all of a sudden they were sold out.
There was obviously those type of issues with passcodes within reselling markets with Ticketmaster. And it just got highlighted, and obviously a lot of people were not happy. Again, with the level of desperation and hysteria around the show. So as that sort of filtered in and progressed and progressively got worse amongst the fan base, what happened was the band got notification, and then they announced the second show.
Yeah, absolutely. And just credit to the band for doing that. I don't think a lot of bands would have done the second show just for the fan club, but again, it just goes to show how passionate the fans are all around the world. And so we may as well talk about the release of the CD and also on vinyl as well, and on CD, DVD and Blu-ray. So there we go. Yes.
This is the Club deluxe box set.
It's finally arrived.
It took a while to get down under, but it did get here, so I can't complain. It is really great in terms of what you just mentioned, incorporating all those elements from your Blu-ray to your LPs to your CD, and a lot of art and graphics and some pics, and some actually used some sheet music as well, which was quite interesting. So
Now, were you one of the winners to get that opportunity?
It's not the signed box set. So there was a signed box set, which was the next level above this one, if you want to use that word level. But yeah, I mean, that's just the deluxe box set, which is great in itself. There was original sheet music, which was signed by the band itself, which was through a lottery process, which you had to pay for, but still a great opportunity to have that in your collection.
Yeah,
for sure.
So going to the gig, like to San Francisco, not the first time you've been there. So was there any sort of Metclub parties or get-togethers before that show? Or?
Well, you had the two dates. So you had the 6th and the 8th of September. So they actually had a night between party, which was absolutely brilliant. It was actually unofficial to a degree. But it included there was Ray Burton, there was a whole different range of guests, but I mean, it was a combination of just the whole congregation of fan base from all over the world, and they had an American cover band. It was just a really brilliant night. It was, and a big night. Can I just add that? So I was catch up and reacquaint with old friends within the Met family, but then just probably more importantly, just even making more new friends within the Metallica family itself. So really, really brilliant night between the two shows. So they did that brilliantly.
So what you saw was there, they're always asking the question in the, in the set, who are the new people that are here? Did you sense that, or was it mainly just old school sort of supporters going there?
Well, I only went to the Metclub only show, and that apparently between the two, from people that actually went to two, was miles apart. So again, that was only for legacy members through the Metclub. So the atmosphere was it was great. It was one of those experiences that you look back on and go, wow, that was definitely like an experience, not just more than just a show.
Yeah.
So if you look back, if you backdate things and contextualize the two shows, if you go back to the original in '99, then the 20-year span, that's a lot of ground to cover. So the original, really, when you think about it back in that date, and you actually timestamp that on the back of the load era, the musical directional change,
yes,
particularly the image issues. There was, so I mean, S&M original really didn't start at one initial point to where it was really looked at like, wow, this is like absolutely amazing. I think it's become so iconic over a period of time. So then your 20-year span into S&M 2, I mean, just the expectation was so high,
yes.
and then you add the polish and you add the elements of a band of that stature and that level was really, really interesting.
And to open up a new stadium as well, the Chase Stadium, it just all sort of come into one, right?
That's exactly right. So you're in a massive new arena. If you want to do comparable terms to S&M original, you're in a Berkeley Theatre. It was up at 4,000 limit, so very intimate, small. I mean, I'm in a unique situation, so I actually went to the original. So I mean, again, the expectation, it was sort of, wow, what are they doing? And there was a lot of question marks about the decisions they were making. So it was complete different. So you went in with a complete different expectation. I can very vividly remember them opening the set in '99, and it was like when the orchestra started, and it was like, and I can remember vividly just standing there, and even my ex-wife at the time that wasn't a fan was like, wow, just massive walls of sound from two genres that are so powerful. And again, the band at that time, '99, they were a lot younger, a lot more fresher. There was so much energy, and it was so raw and powerful. And then you go into 20 years later into S&M 2, it's the polish and the show and everything, bells and whistles. And again, as you rightly say, they're opening a new arena for the home of the Golden State Warriors in San Francisco. So there was political overtones with, the mayor of the city when they did a big whole opening of the stadium, the arena, etc., leading into the show. So I mean, just another level again. So comparing the two is really difficult on one side. So I mean, I don't think you can actually really compare the two. I think they're two separate events from totally different eras. 20 years is a very long time to really make comparative terms.
Definitely, and I think with the first one, I don't think there was much talk about it. Like, it was more. The hardcore fan would definitely go and watch it, and very limited tickets as well. Like only
So again, it was a 4,000 seat community theatre in a university. I think on the east in the East Bay in San Francisco, and we got our tickets through the Metclub, $50 a ticket. So I mean, we just incorporated a holiday, the West Coast driving tour, and Metallica actually playing. So our expectations was like, they're playing with the orchestra. I'm not by any means a fan of that genre or had any sort of inkling in and around that type of music. So it was a wobble there. I mean, and then we met some fans, and it was all pretty low key. And then obviously the show itself really, really changed your perspective on that. So, and that's where it sort of took off and breathed a whole different life into that show, because even songs off, because it was so low reload era based, songs within the set itself, songs like Outlaw Torn just breathe. That song just becomes so iconic through that show itself. And then and No Leaf Clover, that one show. So I mean, again, it was just, and even James himself, because a lot of questions around, Metallica doing something with the orchestra, they've gone mad, they've changed the direction, they this, so they that. And James even says sarcastically through the show, the rock band with the symphony, was a sort of a joke, like within the band itself. But I think they had the confidence to do it at that particular time, and to do it 20 years later was always going to be a challenge, and try and challenge themselves and their fan base, not to create something very similar, but to sort of take it into another direction. I think they achieved that to a degree.
Definitely, and that was one of the things. As much as I loved the first one, I just thought that it was maybe too many songs off the load and reload era. I mean, that was what they were touring for. I understand that, but you know, the average fan is looking at the set list and going, "Oh, where's Unforgiven? Oh, where's Fade to Black? Where is you know what I mean?"
Yeah.
To an average fan, I mean, that's good that they're playing these other songs, but I'm glad that for the second one that they sort of switched up a few songs, and then they had a couple of other albums to sort of pick from. So, in your opinion, what do you think the songs worked, and what songs, in your opinion, sort of didn't work?
Well, let's start this way. So they included 10 songs from the original show. So then so there was 10 songs from the original show. So they had an original score from Michael Kamen. So he was the original composer. So the change from the original into S&M2 was they played 7 new songs, Metallica songs, and 2 orchestra pieces. So the 2 orchestra pieces were the orchestra only, and one was a combination, a collaboration of Metallica and the orchestra. So there was 9 new songs within the second version, or the 20th anniversary show. Right. So again, we could argue, we can all be subjective around what we could and what we shouldn't. But I mean, for me, you had an intermission. So a lot of songs leading into the intermission were your epic journey Metallica songs, you know, the really powerful riffs, and it's real dark and moody, and it's really layered, and it takes you on a journey. So your No Leaf Clovers, your Outlaw Torn type tracks.
Yes.
And then they finish with Halo on Fire, which is very reminiscent of that, with the I mean, really moody build up into your outro. Absolutely amazing song. But they started the second part of the show with the orchestra related piece, and it just sort of was a little bit flat for me. I would have loved a Blackened. For me, that's really subjective, but great intro. Can you know, if you think about the intro with an orchestra, something really upbeat, something really with a high tempo level, something that really get things really moving forward. Because after the 2 orchestra pieces, you went into an acoustic version of All Within My Hands, and then there was a piece by, which was actually the highlight of the show, to be honest, was the lead lead bassist of the symphony orchestra itself, Scott Pingle. He did a bass tribute to Cliff Burton with Amnesia, Pulling Teeth, with Lars bringing in the drums at the end, which was probably to me was the highlight of the show. So I mean, there is that element, but I think the pace of the show was probably, if I'm going to be critical and over-analyze it, if you want to use that word, that would probably be one point that I would make in and around the set list.
Yeah, it was great to hear Halo on Fire. I think that was, out of all the new songs, that one and The Day That Never Comes, I really like that with the symphony. You know, not the distortion, just the clean guitars and having that. But I thought with the second one as well, just from a musical standpoint, I remember James and Lars saying in the first one that they couldn't really pick the high tempo songs because it didn't really fit in with the symphony, and they had to slow the songs down to help them sort of keep up with the symphony. So, but this time they played, like, even at the end of The Day That Never Comes, it's pumping. It was like, you know, it's really got that real thrashy sort of, and they nailed it. So I don't know why they couldn't do it the first time. Maybe that was because of just how they were told to do it. Just play the songs a little. You know, you listen to Battery, just that's an example from the first one. Way slower, a lot slower than the normal. You watch them play live, and it's very more up tempo. So that was just my view of it. Not being
personally, I think you're talking about the most professional musicians in the world from both ends.
Yes,
I mean,
that's right.
Surely you can make it work.
Yes.
In aspects in and around trying to find the dynamics to get the mix right between the correlation of the two genres. I mean, I know that's really difficult, and I think they're valid points. Again, I'm no musician, so I can't really comment out tempo, etc., etc. But I think when you've already mentioned The Day That Never Comes, but then when that's preceded by 3 or 4 other songs that very fit the same dynamic and song structure.
Yes,
that's they sort of filter into each other, which are all great. They're all take you on a different type of journey, and they all have the same type of feel.
Yes,
they're very dark, they're very epic. They tell a story lyrically, and again, that was one part that I found when that through the whole show, if it was broken up by something really upbeat, and I even thought you mentioned Halo from the new album. Hardwired, song from Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Just if you want to incorporate a newer song. I mean, you mentioned Battery, again, Blackened. I mean, there's a few 4 Horsemen, something with a bit of pace and a bit of energy, just to add a bit of different flow and a bit of perspective and dynamics through the show itself.
And even a song like Seek and Destroy or something like that, just to see how it goes with that sort of. It's not a fast tempo. It's got a, and I'm sure they get that question all the time. Why didn't they play Fade to Black? Why didn't they play Sanitarium? The obvious ones that would fit into with an orchestra, but it was fantastic, and to be there live, I mean, it's something that you'll never forget. It's just an iconic moment.
Oh, 100%. Constantly from both shows, from 99 and 2019, was I took 3 photos from 2019 because I really made the effort and was conscious. Just be in the moment. Just absorb yourself in this specific time. Not sit there and film everything, etc. And obviously the first show, there wasn't anything to take in there because you weren't allowed to.
Right.
So
there you go.
I mean, 1999. I mean, you had to take in cameras, and you weren't allowed to take. So a whole different era of how we look at shows and how we experience shows. So there's that element as well, and what people's expectations are. And I actually I like to stand. I like to be engaged, and a lot of people want to sit down, and it's. You need to sit down, mate. You need to sit down. Well, wait a minute. I've travelled the other side of the world from the other side of the world. Like you're at a Metallica show. Sorry, I ain't sitting down. There's no. And again, what happened was everyone just had to stand up.
Yeah, that's right.
I know that can come across a little bit rude. Particularly in this day and age, you've got to be careful about where you sit with those things. No pun intended. But in the end, it was like, I'm at a Metallica show. I want to experience it. So very interesting from
how can you not stand up at a Metallica show? That should be a written written law.
Started with phones and this era with this generational aspect of capturing the moment instead of being in the moment.
That's right.
So I mean,
it was being recorded. Come on, you don't need your phone.
Again, please, that's a podcast for itself.
So speaking of that, we had a friend here from Australia. They were showing highlights, to promote it, and all of a sudden, Alana, we were watching Film the Bell Tolls, and boom,
exactly.
Rocking out.
So, just to put that in perspective. They were releasing song clips from the album leading up to release day. So they released Nothing Matters, I think, All Within My Hands, and then For Whom the Bell Tolls. So I just was, and that they were actually doing it like a premiere based process where they release it worldwide at a particular time. So I would always catch it live, and again I wanted to see the editing, etc. And again I just bang, she's front and center. So I just sort of sent her a message. Yeah, guess who made front and center of For Whom the Bell Tolls? And it wasn't me. And she's like, what? And she was really frantic. But just on that, it was really great for her. She really loves that genre, and to be sort of, the word is immortalized on a Metallica video or concert is amazing. So just to all the Melbourne militia down there, stay strong. Yeah, they're doing it tough. So yeah, it was great to see her be rewarded, if that's the word you want to use, for her passion and love for the band, and particularly those two genres.
Absolutely. And not only was it Alana, but it was also watching at the end of the concert. They went outside, and all the chapters got together, the fan club members, and all of a sudden they put their flags up to show where they were. And I'm just looking in to see who it was. And then smack bang in the front, Jason from Newey, Australia.
Yeah. Well, again, like you rightly say, it was organised after this second show, a flag 'em all. So I think it was close to 100 countries were represented at the series. I mean, it's amazing. So we arranged to meet after the second show and do a flag 'em all. So everyone with their flags, and we all congregated together, and it just turned into this life of its. It became this life of its own. It was amazing. All the South American fans, ole, Metallica, all singing and dancing, and like we stayed there a good hour, good 2 hours after the show. So it was just another element where I said to you before, the experience. It was just something bigger and more special, you would say, than just a normal show. So all that just added to the whole experience of the 20th anniversary is something really special.
Yeah. Now, did you do anything for just the Australian fans? I mean, I'm sure you weren't the only Australian fans at the show. Did you get to meet with other Aussie members?
See, I'm good friends with Alana and her husband Daniel. Daniel didn't actually go, but Alana and I did just hung out together a little bit with a couple other friends. But no, we did the night between party. My own Facebook page group, which you're a part of, we had a get together at Tommy's Joint, the famous Tommy's Joint, which is an integral part of Metallica history. Yeah. Those that know the band know Tommy's Joint. So we had a get together there with my Facebook page, which was really brilliant. Again, having the opportunity to meet other next level, if you can use, fans that are just so passionate and so dedicated towards the band. So that was great. So shout out to Dave Bear, who's part of the group now. He's from the collector end of the band, and just amazing some of the things he has, just pristine first pressings, and just a great guy, passionate, has great history with the band. So again, just an opportunity to share that moment with other fans.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And damn, I wanted to go to, but anyway, that's another thing. I'm waiting for the 30th anniversary. The 30th anniversary of SM3. Come on. But speaking of the promoting of S&M2, and it just shocked me that I get this feed in my Facebook saying that Metallica are going to play before the NRL game, Friday night game between, I think it was the Broncos and Roosters. Yeah.
Roosters, yeah. So had Kirk and in HQ with the jumpers leading up to advertise. That's true.
So I was just shocked to see that. Not something that I didn't even know they were, synced up with the NRL. So tell us.
You do hear Metallica in the background, or if you go to a game, you're a rugby league fan. There's a contractual element there. So obviously they're together for mutual benefit. So Metallica obviously releasing S&M2. How can we how can we do something that incorporates primetime TV, rugby league? So let's do that was that aspect. But then it was the version itself, a jamming version in HQ, which was like, what? And then one of the first performances that we saw in COVID era. So amazing.
And it sounded great. The band were just on fire. And the one thing that stood out was James. We'll talk a little bit more about his health, but him sound like his voice, his vocals were just super strong. And it's like, yes, he's doing that. Really getting up there and
pulling through things, reaching. And again, we actually spoke about this because I listened to our first podcast. And again, how much rest and that aspect of pushing things to the limit and being rejuvenated mentally and physically is a big thing in that man's life. And you just get a sense from it. Just really shows he really has that ability through his music to show that. And you're exactly 100% on point around that. He was just, you could tell he was alive, and it was James back. Whereas if you look at SNM2, and I just watched the Blu-ray for the 10th time, you can tell. You can tell. We spoke about it again in our previous podcast around his appearance in that particular period when they cancelled the tour. It's a sign of mental health and some issues. And again, he was aware of it, and he did the right thing. So within COVID itself, they've found a silver lining. That's a silver lining for not only himself, more importantly, but the band and the longevity of the band and the fans.
Now, speaking of which, is this a sign that they might play at the NRL Grand Final, or are they, an Australian tour?
Well, I mean, that would be wishful thinking, but it's a sign that there's a future. I mean, we spoke about again getting back to 2019. There was a fear of this could be the end. This could be the beginning of the end, particularly for James. So to see them and the other three members really are a lot different personality-wise, etc. But James so full of life, and as you say, it's really highlighted in his performance. It was just amazing. And again, prime time on national Australian TV. I think aside from maybe I think the old Hey Hey It's Saturday, I'm probably showing my age here, but anyone that remembers Hey Hey It's Saturday, I think they did something for the Black album. I cannot recall anything being on primetime Australian TV. So that was awesome. I cranked it up, and neighbours could hear it for 4 houses up, so it was pumping.
That's great. Yeah, it's great. It's great that they're affiliated with the NRL, and like for years they've had so many petitions to play for the Super Bowl. So fingers crossed they get a Super Bowl and they get a. I think they're due.
Mate, come on. I mean that
overdue for the Super Bowl.
That hook and that swagger of that song. We can go around the commercialism, but the hook and swagger of that song, turn the volume up. You get people excited. That brings people to its feet. So if you incorporate the NRL, which is aggressive, it's it's a bit misogynistic in a way, but there's still that like element of let's get pumped up and
absolutely.
So I mean, there was that element as well. But it was just great to see them back together in James' really healthy state. For who knows where we'll go.
The things to come. And speaking of that, a great thing, a great initiative was that all the club members, or all the people that had black tickets, got a signed letter. Look out! It's all framed and everything. There you go.
That hangs. I mean, that hangs very proudly in the room of doom, I like to call it.
And it definitely just shows, it just said, we all understand that you spend all this time and money and effort to travel from different countries and hotels, but we understand where as soon as we get fit and healthy, we'll come back. And I just thought that was great. And for anybody that's that wants to sort of say anything more about that after this letter, I mean, you're a very harsh judge. What do you think about this, Jace?
Very close. Well, I think it's a touch of class.
Yes,
that's what it is. It's a small gesture, but it's a very classy. And some like any fan, and you're included in this, that loves the band to our level and are dedicated and exactly right. It just meant so much. I mean, that's a personalised letter from one of the biggest bands in the world, just to say exactly what you said. We're sorry, life happens. We've got a situation. We all love James anyway. We'll be back. Just hang in there. We appreciate you. So, I mean, what more could you ask for? I mean, again, it was such a small little gesture, but it meant so much. And again, you're so right. If you're going to make an issue of that, I mean, you maybe look in the mirror, I think.
Or it might be time to follow another band, actually.
Plenty of metal bands,
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely. And with this time as well, like COVID, obviously, when we talked last time, it was pre-COVID, and bands have had to do different things to sort of in this period, it sort of shut it down. So Metallica have come up with all these great ideas. So the first thing that I want to talk about is one of the first things that they did was the release of an alternative Blackened version.
Yes, revamp version. 2020 revamp version of Blackened. So you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So they're all still in their quarantine hubs, their own personal quarantine hubs, so their own personal situation. So again, it was taking a song of Blackened. We all know the song Blackened. For those that don't know the song Blackened, it's the opening track of And Justice for All. It is brutal and aggressive, and I don't think that opening intro into like one of the most aggressive opening tracks, and in my opinion, probably one of the best, if not the best opening tracks that they have on an album, and then taking it somewhere completely different and putting a whole different spin on it through a whole range of beautiful subtleties and different layers and acoustically and just taking a song and making it something completely different. And that takes such ability. You know yourself as a musician. I mean, that's something really difficult to do. And I mean, I admire them for doing that. And that was probably the quarantine Metallica aspect that we first saw. So I mean, it was great. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. And it was just like the whole NSMN thing. It was just great to see them back playing as a band. They weren't together, but they were, creating music together. And, just the one thing, and I think we've talked about it before, before this podcast, is, well, the obvious question is, why didn't they record a new song? And sorry, I should have spoke about that with S&M 2. Why didn't they do a new song on S&M 2?
Well, again, I think from S&M 2's perspective, I think you've got to factor in James's situation.
Right.
I mean, his time frame in and around making sure he has a lot of rest and recuperation after the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, obviously, really, and then the rehearsal space to get ready for S&M 2. So maybe they're just that was probably a time issue.
Yes.
Just my opinion. When I think of a new song within quarantine isn't over yet, buddy. We don't know.
Right.
We don't know. So at that particular time, they're just like any other human being. You're adjusting to a pandemic.
That's right. Yeah.
So I mean, they're only human. I mean, again, you got your own personal space. They've all got kids. They've all got families. They're all trying to find their own way in and around dealing with a pandemic. So I mean, the expectation of a new song is probably a little bit high in my observation. But then, as you rightly say, they got back together, and apparently that song was something James had just done himself. So He'd sent that off to Lars, all sort of fitted, and it happened organically. And so that was the outcome of that. But in terms of a new song, I think my expectations are a little bit high with all that, I think.
But in saying that, they've also all of them have come out and said that they've got new material, like recorded on demos, ready to go, right? So that's promising.
That's a big part of where they're heading, and I think again about getting in the room, the four boys in the room is going to be the issue. So yes. I mean, doing things separately and writing, having some riffs and having some song structure and having, in James' case, having some lyrics, again getting all that together and doing that organically and in the same room, which builds the chemistry and a vibe of an album, is going to be the challenge. But I mean, a band of that stature and that has all the resources, I'm very positive, and that we'll see some new material in one way, shape, or form within the next year. Definitely.
Now, speaking of just getting off topic just for a little bit, our boys from Oz, AC/DC, I just want to talk about it. Brian Johnson's back, Phil Rudd's back, Cliff. Oh, it's so good, and they're going to release an album very, very soon. So,
Power up!
I can't wait. I've heard snippets of it. Hearing Brian Johnson back on vocals, and the swing.
Shot in the dark.
What's that?
Shot in the dark. Shot in the dark.
Yeah.
Shot in the dark. So they had 30-second snippet. So
yes.
I mean, I think that's sort of, there's been rumours in and around them being seen in a studio in Vancouver since last year. So yes. I mean, it's probably, again, COVID's probably interrupted a lot of that process, but to see them again, exactly. I mean, just the riff, the hook, that
puts a big smile on your face. Just being, it's just great to see him back, and like they say it's going to be the last tour, but they've been saying it's the last tour for 30 years. So I'll see it when I believe it. Keep it going. Keep it going, Angus.
Keeps legacy alive. And again, you know what you're going to get from AC/DC. That's the difference if we're going to talk comparative around bands.
Yes.
Metallica is like, you just don't know where you're going. They'll take you in. They force you to really challenge you in and around a lot of things. Akadaka's like, you know what you're going to get. Yeah, here it is. It's such a contrast in one way, but again, such an iconic band. And exactly right. An old lineup, if you want to use that.
Yeah.
Old members, original members.
That's the closest you get to it, the original lineup. I think it's great. Like, puts a smile on everybody's faces. It's just so cool, so cool. So let's get back to COVID period with Metallica. So they were so busy through. Not necessarily James, but like Lars and the boys, they were keeping busy, doing things. So one of the first things that they started to do was and I thought it was a great initiative, was Metallica Mondays.
Yes.
So I can just remember waking up every Tuesday morning here in Oz and just waking up, turning on, and boom, there's a Metallica show. So,
from the vault.
From the vault. Yeah.
Metallica vault. So, I mean, that started in and around March, and I think they did 24 consecutive weeks. So you even had the famous Lars babble, where he'd go on and have his spiel and his words, and he's such a character, and he was just Lars being Lars, just really brought some light into the situation, and they showed shows right across from 83, 84, right up until the current worldwide tour.
Yeah.
So it was they covered everything, and even within that, there was I'm pretty sure it was a Damage Justice tour show, 1989 from Mountain View in LA. I'm pretty sure from Lars's camcorder.
Yeah,
it was a bootleg.
And this was the one. This is the one where Lars come out and sung. They all swapped instruments, and Lars was singing "Am I Evil?" That was so cool.
Pretty sure it was. There was Melbourne. You're exactly right, and there was Melbourne on the Soundwave tour in 2013. That was for me. That was one of the highlights. There was
too.
One show that I went to on the Worldwide Arena tour in 2017, night 2 in Paris, which was amazing. So again, they really broad the span that, right across from a show with Cliff in 84 right up till the current day, or 2019. So
the ones the ones that I really enjoyed were that load period. Just totally different. They had a bit of a different sound, and just hearing the songs off the load album, Bleeding Me and Ain't My Bitch, and it was just good to hear those songs played live again.
I mean, it's really interesting conversation around that era. It sort of seems to be an afterthought when you look at current set lists. And again, I don't want to be too critical of set lists because, again, they've got such a back catalogue. And again, it can be a little bit subjective. But when it's a whole era of songs sort of have been a little bit pushed to the side, it's like, I wonder what that. You'd love to sort of get into the inner sanctum to see what those are decisions about, because you just mentioned Bleeding Me. For me, Bleeding Me is in probably the top 5 or 6 songs all time. It's resonates really personally, and Until It Sleeps too. It's such a personal song around my own father. So I mean, I have such a strong connection, and also the aspect of the songs themselves, as you rightly say, the sound, the blues end of the band, the range. They went down that.
Guys catching on fire.
Yes. It was non-staccato type riffs, which was more blues orientated, and it was a whole different sort of song arrangement. And like, songs like Ronnie, and that you would never ever really think sort of fit what you would categorize Metallica to be. But that's what Metallica do best. They challenge you to, no, this is not what we're not going to fit in the metal genre box. And I think that's where a lot of the image aspects and a lot of the artistic aspects around that era was a big bird. Can I do that on you get it out? To the metal genre. Yeah, we don't give a shit. Exactly right. Ain't my bitch, So yeah, it was interesting, but you're right. I mean, that was definitely one of the highlights to see, Kirk's do, and the whole stage show and the entrance of the stage. Yeah, you're exactly right. So I mean, they covered across their whole career. Really, it was brilliant. Brilliant part of COVID, because you're right. It did make up. It did alleviate some of the boredom of that period of time with COVID.
Well, the two ones that stood out, and the ones that I went to, were the Yankee Stadium one, where they all come out and did the Motorhead song Overkill. But that was just that just brought some great memories. The boys were on fire. But in particularly the Melbourne Soundwave show, that was just a great show. It was a great set. And the one that stood out for me was when they played My Friend of Misery. It was just spine tingling. It was just,
I mean, right. You're exactly right. I mean, so much atmosphere, and it brings such an emotional song, and the bass intro and crowd participation, and that was definitely. I actually found the non-new album tour was really interesting. So the Black Album anniversary, the 20-year Black Album anniversary European tour they did, where they played the Black Album reverse to front, which was brilliant. And then they also did in 2006, they did the 20-year Master of Puppets anniversary show, which they did in Berlin. So they played that as well.
And they've done Ride the Lightning as well, right? Because I remember James didn't want to play Escape.
That was actually at the Orion Festival in Atlantic City.
Yes,
so that there. So I mean, getting back to the Metallica Mondays, that was all part of one that they showed a lot of those shows as well, which was really great. Coincidentally, that Berlin show for the 20-year Master of Puppets tour had the new song, which was song. So
And
Death
that
is
was
not
like
the end. Death is not the end, which became End of the Line and or Nightmare Long. There's elements of that. So Motor Breath, I think it was the first and only time they've opened with that. So absolutely awesome.
Was that Soundwave in Melbourne?
With Hit the Lights, yeah,
Hit the Lights.
Yes. Yeah, just the intro. Oh, yeah. Excellent song to open with.
Yeah, that was a great set, great show. One of the best ones on. And talking about that Australian tour as well, like a couple of nights before when they played in Melbourne, I think they must have played 5 or 6 songs from Injustice for All. So really, really good set list. And then even going back a tour before, like Death Magnetic, like 70 or 80 different songs on that whole tour are just so cool. And then some of the American fans, like they do their big arena shows and they go back to the sort of regular set, just having the standard set. The standard.
Standard. Bobby Lupton. Standard Bobby Lupton.
Yeah. Bobby.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, there was over, I can't recall exactly the figure, but I think it was over 50 different songs across 22, 24 shows in Australia and New Zealand, because they actually came back 3 times. They actually started in September and then they went back, had their 2-week break and then came back again. And they put shows on before the original dates and they backdated certain things, and it just went on and on and on. I can remember taking off work, time for work, and missing certain dates because they made new dates because they sold them out, and it's like continually putting dates on. So I ended up getting to 14 of those shows, but I know yourself and others actually even did even more. So crazy time, but absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I think the only ones I missed out on those whole tours were Christ. I did the Auckland ones, but I didn't go to Christchurch. So I think that was the only one I didn't do on that tour.
Wow,
but it was around that earthquake time. But anyway, so Metallica Monday, great initiative, great. I was really happy to see that, but that stopped, and then they sort of released the SNM2, or sort of the promotion and all that. But they did their first live show. But live show, do you call a drive-in a live show? So tell us about this.
Pandemica. It was
Pandemica.
So yeah, you're exactly right. It was through their drive-in theatre outlet. So they did a pre-recorded show, no fans, just staff, and apparently crickets and bugs from Sonoma in California, which is a wine region. So
right.
Said that they would finish the song and all you could hear was all the background noise of crickets and bugs, which is really weird to hear. And I would never have thought I would mention those names associated with the Metallica show. But what happened was pre-recorded. In regards to the set list, I think 16 songs, which was pretty much a greatest hits from across their catalogue. But again, it was just great to see them. And that was the whole concept of the show, was just to get the band back together. We're playing live again together. We're in the middle of a pandemic and then letting other people experience it. So that was the main focus of the whole thing. Then people costs, and if people want to pay this, and again, anything that Metallica do, it's going to cost you money.
Yes.
So I think.
And the thing, one thing that they only got to do it in North America, unfortunately.
So I was just going to touch on that around the cost and then the North American aspect. And it was like, be great. There's an element of being a fan and being where you say to yourself, look, it's just be happy with the fact is they're back playing live. Yeah. It is what it is. If you're willing to pay a certain amount to go to the drive-in, well, that's the issue. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Lower your expectations. It's great to see them live. See them playing. Sorry, Yeah.
I would like to see anybody go to the US now during a pandemic. How they would get there? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, again, I think from that perspective, and we've spoken about it before, sometimes when you eat with a silver spoon all the time, food starts to taste the same.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is you can get a little bit spoiled and your expectations just can get a little bit high. So again, I love American fans. I love going to America to watch shows, but there is that element. And again, that really creeped in. And from an Australian fan's perspective, it didn't get that opportunity.
Yes.
It was like, I think let's sort of wall back on all that. But again, that's Metallica fan base. I mean, what can you say?
That's right. You get some very, very hardcore fans. But speaking about this, we're going all through the COVID things that Metallica brought out figurines. Now, who would have thought? Who would have thought in this period? So they're trying to market the Metallica brand as much as they can, and they've brought out some figurines now as well. Now, I've got it written down here that you might need to get the bank book out and get some money out of your account. $500. I've got $400 written on here, but $500.
Is that? I think it was 125 per individual.
Individual, right?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So again.
So we might have to, if you're a kid, I think you might have to wait till Christmas to get this.
They'll sell it. I mean, pretty much. I mean, all the foil prints in regards to S&M2, all the limited edition things in and around that, all sold out. They had all Pandemica drive-in theatre shirts, Metallica Mondays shirts. So everything they've done, other than Blackened revamp version, they've had incorporated merchandise on top of that as well. So they had Pandemic and anything will sell.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, so I use the word Kiss-Talica. Kiss-Talica. It's Kiss-Talica, look. Kiss-Talica.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I mean, they've got that opportunity now from a business standpoint to put their name on everything. So I mean, that's just something you've got to accept. If you take the metal analogy and you're selling out, well, that's an old boring story. So figurines, man, people want to have a collection of figurines and they want to pay 5,500, 200, whatever. I mean, they're going to do it because they know they're going to sell them.
That's right. and what did Jason Newsted say? Yes, we sell out. Single shirt.
That's it. As now it's yes, we sold out. We sell everything we put our name on.
That's right.
Whiskey, beer. I mean, we could go on and on and on.
Blackened whiskey. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and another thing that they've done during this period, actually, it might have been before this. I'm not too sure. You can probably tell me about this, but the Metallica vinyl as well. Now,
yes, it's actually a club.
Yeah.
So it's actually going back into history where they're they're giving fans an opportunity to join a club and through a subscription where they release a limited edition vinyl, which is a 7-inch. And again, they pick a different show, different era, etc., etc. So unfortunately, due to shipping, etc., they've had issues with that. So they haven't been officially released yet. So something to look forward to. But again, it's just another sort of little niche market that they're going into. But I like the fact is that it's giving people an opportunity to have a subscription and be part of a club again. Because I think there is no more club. I mean, an email, etc., isn't a club anymore. So the band has got so big that it's all inclusiveness. So I like that aspect that it's something limited and something special for a certain amount of groups. So they're limited numbers and you pay a subscription. So actually hasn't been officially released yet. So that should be on its way maybe by the end of this year.
Right. Do you think that'll ever get back to a subscription membership, or is that gone?
I mean, I've been advocating that for the last 10 years, and that's a big reason why I formed my own Facebook group in regards to the legacy. Just a lot of the older members and older fans sort of got lost in a world of a younger generation who are good on computers and good at groups and good articulating on a computer, and it's everyone that a level of fan really got lost. So that was the reason why I started the legacy page. It is an unofficial page, but it was good to sort of bring in a whole group of older fans and get re-engaged. But again, I've tried to advocate that through the club, but I think the inclusiveness aspect where you have up to over 1 million subscribers now is the main focus. But I mean, you can always hope. I mean, you can always hope that they could do something from a legacy standpoint and give people an opportunity. But then, you're going back into having levels of fans again. And I think the club sort of steered away from that, even though there is a process for legacy members and they do get forwarded certain opportunities like signed box sets and S&M too.
Yes.
Well, that was forwarded to legacy members. So there is opportunities there. But if they, it'd be interesting to see if they did. But personally, I don't think so. No.
I don't think they will as well, because they just want to have more people come in, whether they're,
inclusiveness, yes. Which I understand and I respect.
Yes,
and
me too.
I've got to a point where I can accept all that now. I mean, it's difficult when you've been into the band and you're in the club from day one, and you've gone through a whole different range of eras, and you've got to a point where you've been in something for 25 years, and all of a sudden it's like, well, your status then automatically just means you're back to where you started.
Yes.
So you've just got to move on. I mean, a lot of people still really hold that. As we spoke about before, some people just won't let a lot of things go. Unfortunately, that's unfortunate for them. But I can move on. But I think you're right. I don't see them doing anything like that in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get close to wrapping up. So there's two things that I want to talk about to finish off. Firstly, I listened to a Eddie Trunks podcast, which had Lars on there, and they were talking about their careers, and Eddie was getting them to ring up and go, hey, what's your top 2 or 3 Metallica songs? Anyway, this was going on for days apparently, and then all of a sudden, Lars, they called up Lars, and Lars ran in and he was talking about different eras of the band and why they sort of did the snare and Saint Anger and the no guitar solos, and then he finished off with, if you had a new person that had never listened to Metallica before, what 2 songs would you represent the band? What would you let them listen to? And he pretty much he explained the reasons why, that the 2 that he came up with was One and Master of Puppets.
Good choices.
Yeah, and he just was saying, it's a good representation. It's like the clean guitar, the solos, the double kick, the 7-minute song. It was just Metallica. But people were calling up saying all these obscure songs that you know what I mean.
Well, it's subjective, isn't it? It's subjective. I mean,
that's right. That's right. And people's opinion.
That's the thing about music. That's the gift and the reality of music. It's so subjective.
So what? So what would have you chosen?
Definitely one song, "Fade to Black," without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, such a connection to that song from when I first heard the band, from '86 right through till today. I'll always listen to that song. There's something atmospheric. There's something unspoken. It's intangible that you can't really explain why I have such a connection in that song. It's oxymoronic. It's a song about suicide, yet it gives you strength and gives you positivity. Not many. So that definitely Fade to Black. Second song, wow, that can change from day to day.
Yeah.
I mean, I can honestly say yesterday was Feel Good, Blackened. Just pump up, and then there's obviously, depending on your moods, that can change. Yes. So I mean, a good representation of Metallica, I think. I would say Fade to Black and One.
Right.
One. Yeah, as you said, the clean guitar, just the vocal line into the outro. Yeah. I mean, but in saying Lars's choices, I would never argue about those.
Yeah, that's
either.
right.
So,
Yeah, that's
again,
right.
Today I'm saying definitely Fade to Black always, and one. Tomorrow could be something else, maybe even Shorter Straw.
Yeah,
there you
right.
go.
And it was interesting too, like that over in China, and they don't even know who Metallica are. They don't know who AC/DC are, which is just absolutely crazy. So, what I have done is go a different path and play the singles off the Black album. Enter Sandman, Nothing Else Matters, Unforgiven, Sad But True, and Rome. And I think that's also a good sort of gauge into the band. I did the same thing. It was like sort of the Black Album songs, but then hearing one and then going back. So but it's all interesting. I think Unforgiven 2 could be one.
Unforgiven for me would be my top favourite songs.
Yes.
I mean, we could debate all day, and it's the quality of their back catalogue.
That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
Creeping Death. I mean, Creeping Death didn't even make either S&M 2, so we're sort of in the dots with that in a conversation.
Yeah, right.
I mean, a lot of people would definitely have that as one of their favourite songs, or if not their favourite song from Metallica.
Now, speaking of that, you also had like a chart on your page, where your legacy page, where you picked the best songs from each album, and then the people in the group voted for their favourite song. So that was also very, very interesting to see the results. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so we followed a format which the actual official club did some kind of bracket. So it was basically how they'd formatted theirs was through the seeding process, was popularity through their streaming and downloads, etc. So a lot of the Black Album songs were seeded really high. What we did was we did each individual album and the weights of those albums to determine the seeding. So each individual album, and we got to 32 songs, including the 2 songs of S&M original, Minus Human and No Leaf Clover, and then we added Beyond Magnetic, which was leftover songs from the oh God, can't believe I missed the name here. 4 songs.
We'll
Oh, sorry. Death they were leftover songs from Death Magnetic.
Right.
So what we did was we did a song bracket, each song against each other, and we ended up with 2 songs at the end. So, but the final 4 were coincidentally 2 songs from Ride the Lightning, which were Fade to Black and Creeping Death, and Orion, which is their instrumental from Master of Puppets, and the winner was Creeping Death, and it was very marginally different. Again, you can't take it all too seriously, but in the end, it was very, very interesting to see the difference between the 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And just I know that The Day That Never Come was there for a little while as well, and No Leaf Clover was in there for a little while as well, which was a bit of a surprise. But it's just interesting to see what some of the hardcore fans, like we was talking about it before, that NSM wasn't even close. Arguably their biggest song.
Well, definitely their most popular song, but I think when you get to that level of fan, it's sort of, we've heard that song so many times.
That's right.
There's a actually better song, and coincidentally, NSM didn't even become in the voting process for the Black Album. So I think the God That Failed and maybe the Unforgiven went through out of the Black Album. So again, popularity mightn't always be the best thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm sure we could talk about those songs until the cows come home. But
sure.
I want to
all day.
But I want to leave off with one thing, and it's happened very, very recently. and sort of like the So What magazines that we used to get as a fan club member. I used to wait very patiently to get my new So What in the mail. But Stefan Shirazi, is that how you say it?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Very lovely guy. I've met him twice now, and couldn't be a nicer guy to me. Always up for a chat. But he recently interviewed James. Was it James or the band? It was just James.
It's a series of interviews with the band, but James is the first one that just got released yesterday.
Yeah. So you've already read this. So what does it entail?
Well, it just goes through James's process from making the decision into rehab. Doesn't go into specifics, but that time in his mindset, and then it goes into the pandemic and goes into getting back together as a band. So it's sort of spread across that time frame, and really insightful. And his honesty. Yeah. So he even himself suggested that the band went too far in regards to with shows and how far they push things on this current tour, and he was quite open and honest about it. So again, just being clear-minded and being honest with himself around his addiction, and he was hiding things from people that he's close in the sanctum, and he was very honest about that. And then he went into his anxieties and his fears in and around performing again. And one of the most poignant, I would say, insightful parts of the interview was he's actually had to stop writing because he has so much material that he wants to make sure other members of the band get some of their ideas.
Right.
So that was a really bit that I took out. So, I mean, he's found time, and I said this before, around the silver lining within the COVID time frame to get himself rejuvenated, get himself through his addiction issues. He's had time to rest, and then he's found naturally back to his love for writing and being a conduit for music. That was his word, being a conduit, and that's his gift, and he wants to share that. So that's just great news for a Metallica fan. That's massive news. So that's brilliant to hear, particularly from James.
Yeah, absolutely,
for sure.
He's steering the ship, and it's so cool that they're even thinking about writing new music and touring again, and that's just really inspiring and inspirational. All right, mate. What are the plans then? What are the plans for the future for Metallica moving forward after post-COVID?
Well, that's hopefully, firstly, some new material.
Yeah.
I mean, by that interview and other members of the band have saying they've all got material. So best case scenario is getting the band together. They have to be in the same room, I think, that band to actually produce new music. So I think, again, they're at a level where they can make that work. Again, depending on the virus itself, and in regards to where we head with that, will sort of dictate shows. But I definitely think new material is something that's definitely in the pipeline in the next year to 6 months. I mean, if they don't have any shows, they've really relatively got nothing else to do. It's just about making sure that they're safe and they feel safe. And James did mention that about getting back together and being in a safe environment to be creative together. So, I mean, that's something that we could all look forward to, and let's be positive, and that's what we can look forward to. As for live shows, I think, I mean, that
still dates. There's still got dates there on the official website saying they're going to play in South America and one show in the US. That's highly unlikely.
Yeah, so the American date is from the Denny Wimmer Consortium concert.
Oh, right.
They had 5 festivals booked for this year that were cancelled. The last date was in Sacramento, which they've backdated to October of next year. They've actually formally announced Metallica are going to double headline that. The other 4, they've actually given people an opportunity to reimburse their ticket or take the option for next year. haven't announced that Metallica are playing. So that's a little bit complicated, I know. But the one date, the October date, has actually Metallica performing officially. So that's very interesting, very optimistic. But we live in a very strange world at the moment, mate. Who knows what's around the corner? So being positive, it'd be great to have a show to look forward to. But I think the new material is probably one that's probably more around the next 6 to 8 months before we look to October next year before any new shows.
That's great.
Yeah.
How good would it be to have another album out before they can start touring again? That would be just fantastic. On the back of S&M 2 as well. You know, the band's just be on fire if they were able to do that. That's just
great. And I would make the assumption that Australia would be very, very high on the list of first. And I think that was one thing about the interview with James was he was very upfront and honest about just how far they push things, and they come to realise that they've pushed things too far from his perspective, which is very open and honest. That the 2 weeks on 10-day shows, a show every second day, and then 2-week break wasn't enough because he felt when he got back he was very open with his connection with people and his connection with his family, because all he wanted to do was come back and sit on the lounge. So I mean, he is closing in on 60. People have got to remember that it's a fine balance. So I think one thing I will say, looking towards Metallica in the future, is long tours, big, massive tours will probably always be the case, but they will be shorter and shorter blocks, and we can expect a couple of months in between, etc., etc. So I mean, I think that will probably be the main difference as we go forward.
But the thing is, mate, they've been saying that for 20 years, and then you look at the tour dates, and it's just, oh my God, it's going to go for 2 or 3 years. And they've been saying it since the Black album that they're going to shorten their dates, that it's going to be less touring, more albums bring out, but it's very difficult.
That's when you're on the back of their most successful album since the Hard Struck. I mean, there was always going to be that point where there was going to be a necessity in certain markets. So you're back flipping stadium dates to arenas between Europe and America, which probably in hindsight probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. So because you've missed certain things, and now you've got to make catch up dates, and you know you've got promises in other and commitments in other countries. So
South America's and South America's screaming for him. Japan screaming for him. Australia, New Zealand are screaming for him. So that's what happens when you're the biggest band in the world. Everybody want. Give me more. You know what I mean?
That was the one thing about what James has said is there's got to be a point where you say no, and you've got to be smarter in and around, you know, how you set those things up. What that is, I have no idea. But I mean, obviously, he's making the point that it just went too far, and the outcome, and he openly admits when he looks at himself in S&M2 where he was and what place he was in to get through those shows, which was again very insightful, but and very honest, which I think from an edition standpoint is what you need. So I mean, he's already at that place where he's honest with him and transparent within himself. So I mean, that's just how James is, and I really respect that about him. So from a Metallica fan, I think I can quite easily accept the fact is you mightn't see them 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, but that opportunity you do get, you're going to take even.
Oh yes.
And it keeps their longevity moving forward in a positive way. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's wrap it up now, Jace. Give us a plug for Facebook.
Well, it's Metclub Legacy members. It's called Legacy Remains. So if you're a Legacy member on or through the official page, just hook up on Facebook. And again, you can be part of the group. It's great engagement in regards to Legacy members. Again, it's open to everybody. There's no real protocols to follow. It's not real. There's no serious elements. A lot of history involved. I love to advocate certain dates, anniversaries. It's really important to acknowledge those things. It is difficult in this time with nothing moving forward, but again, it's an opportunity for an older member, particularly, to sort of re-engage. So just check it out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it
So
is.
I think, Craig,
Yeah.
been awesome, buddy. Always.
Not necessarily for everybody, but if you, like you said, if you are a legacy member, get in there and have a look, and you get to meet all the fans from around the world that are got a passion for Metallica. So love talking
100%.
to you all the time, Jace. I love talking Metallica with you. Let's catch up very, very soon, and
Love you.
talk to you soon, mate. Thanks for the chat. Okay,
Love you, mate.
bye.